Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Chief AI Officer Summit. We're so excited to have you all here with us. This is the kind of conference I love attending, where every attendee could be a speaker, and where every attendee is a speaker at other conferences. There's also a conference where you will get to speak and meet everyone that you'd want to, because we've built in so many networking breaks. Every year, I write a post about who's attending this summit, and this year I was tagging the speakers on LinkedIn, and I was blown away by the quality and range and depth of the speakers we have. A lot of conferences say they have all-star speakers, but we really have all-star speakers. My name is Sri Srinivasan. As you can see, I'm former Chief Digital Officer of New York City, the Metropolitan Museum, and Columbia University. I'm co-founder of DigiMentors, a social, digital, and AI consulting and training business, and president of SAJA, the South Asian Journalists Association. My main title, however, is president of the David Mathison Fan Club. I'm honored to be your MC once again today. I'm coming to you having just returned from Oslo, where I host each year's Nobel Peace Conference. The CAIO Summit has a slightly different set of topics, but at the heart of it, the two conferences are the same. How can we help improve humanity with all the challenges in front of us? 16 years ago, I read a book called Be the Media, How to Create and Accelerate Your Message Your Way, explaining better than any book I've ever read about how we can use the media to become better in whatever we do. This was before Instagram existed, Snapchat, and TikTok. That book had a wonderful intro and quote right on the front page, on the cover by the great late Phil Donahue. He said, "This book takes publishing and broadcasting's powers away from industrial titans and hands it to you. And this is loaded with practical advice. This book is a must-read." That book was written by David Mathison, and this conference is like that. It's all about learning more and getting as much practical advice as you can. One of the things we saw at yesterday's CDO summit is that every speaker was asked to give a quick set of tips towards the end of each panel, and it made a huge difference for people to absorb takeaways from the conference. 11 years ago, I was invited to attend and speak at the first CDO summit in New York City by David, and that changed my life forever because the Met Museum leadership came to the conference looking to hire their first ever CDO, and I was recruited to do just that. So please turn off your phone's ringers and turn on your LinkedIn app. We want you to connect with each other. You'll see that all the photographs of the speakers are from LinkedIn so that you can identify and find the right person on LinkedIn. And by the way, you're going to see some great photographs throughout the day on the slides, including this one you can see in the background. They're all taken by David, who has this talent as a photographer that most of us don't know. Now I want to introduce David properly. He is a visionary leader in the world of talent, data, digital transformation, and he is the CEO of everything you're going to experience today. And in 2012, he founded the CDO Club, followed by the CDO Summit in 2013, which I mentioned, creating the first ever community and event series specifically designed for chief digital officers. This was really a culmination of his work for so many years, having started his own company, which he founded, and it raised more than $30 million in 2 years. And then before that, he was VP of Reuters from 1994 to 1999. And he pioneered online content syndication before RSS even existed. So in these 30 years, he's been involved in high-tech information, publishing, software, and the event industries. But at the same time, he gives back so much. He's on several boards, including Pace University's School of Business, Homemade America, and so much more. Please join me in welcoming to the stage a true innovator and thought leader in this field that we're all in today. We're all learning together from David Mathison.
Thank you, Sri, for that warm introduction. Thank you all for being here. And how many people were here yesterday? Okay, so you've seen my keynote already. There will be a test. Here's the problem. We've got 700 chief AI officers on the planet, and the demand is through the roof. So we need to solve that problem. I'm not sure we're going to solve it today, but that's a problem that needs to be solved. It's the most important technology we've ever been introduced to. And it's a very competitive environment, not only with China and Russia, but also with non-state actors and others. So let's get right to it, shall we? I get these questions all the time. These are the questions the media, the analysts, journalists, they all want to know. Number one, how many CAIOs are there on the planet? Who was the first chief AI officer? And where did they get that role? When did I start tracking chief AI officers? And I'd say, what's their compensation is always a big question. And what are CAIOs responsible for? So I'm going to get to those. We're going to answer those questions by the end of this session. If you do a search right now, if you pull out your phone, you do a search on LinkedIn, see in the upper left corner, 1,400 results as of October 1st. There's 1,400, and I just said there's 700, right? So we'll get to the question of why I'm only counting half of the ones on LinkedIn. Don't trust those other 700, basically, is what we're going to say. I wrote the world's first ever chief digital officer talent map 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And this was a deep dive into a new title. It was all about digital transformation 10, 12 years ago. And so I created a talent map where I did some numbers, ran the numbers, and then provided a forecast on what we expected on projections. And you could see 2005, there was just one. How many people were here yesterday? Does anybody remember who was the first chief digital officer? Or what company? What was the disruption that caused that company to hire a chief digital officer? Anybody remember? Okay, it was Jason Hirschhorn at MTV. The disruption was Napster in 1999. It was disrupting the music industry, and MTV thought we should hire somebody to take defensive posture against this. So certainly digital transformation moved from defense to offense pretty quickly. But the first chief digital officer hired was Jason at MTV. The second, the following year, was George Kliakoff at NBC Universal. And they saw if this is affecting the music industry and MP3s, long-form video is next. And then we saw industries and sectors over the course of the last 10 years. Oil and gas was one of the last to digitally transform, right? Music was first, et cetera, et cetera. And we saw different sectors over time use digital transformation. And I started projecting, it was around 2013 I did this map. At that time, there were about 400 or 500 chief digital officers in the world. The next year, 2014, there were 1,000, and I was predicting that there would be 1,500 by the end of that year. So once it hit about 1,000, things just took off. And of course, then we had the last mile of digital transformation, which was a global pandemic. All that stuff that was on the back burner, like work from home, telemedicine, remote learning, telehealth, this stuff was back burner stuff until 2019, and then all of a sudden it became really important. And the last mile of digital transformation will be complete. Why do I bring all this up? Because now we're moving from digital transformation, or DX, to what I call exponential transformation, or XX, or EX. And that's due to Gen AI and AI. We're going to see huge transformations that are going to disrupt entire sectors, leaving millions of people out of work within the next few years. This isn't going to take 10 years and a pandemic to see this get to its last mile. This is going to happen fast, and it's going to have tremendous impact on society. So this was, again, off the chief digital officer talent map. I said, where are they located? The majority of these were in the United States. The majority of those were in the Northeast. You don't need a chief digital officer in Google or at Spotify because they were already obviously digital natives. So then I thought, well, let me take this abroad. So I went to London. We did our first event at Thomson Reuters in New York City. And some of you were there. Sri was there. He got a job with the Metropolitan Museum of Art at that event. And then we did our first UK event in London at the BBC. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to walk us through very, very quickly 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. This was a blog post we did in 2016. And at that point, the chief data officer started taking off. A lot of you know I did the first ever Chief Digital Officer Summit in 2013, but MIT CDOIQ had been doing Chief Data Officer Summits for 5 years before that. So Chief Data Officers had been around. There were a few hundred. Suddenly, huge uptick, and the uptick in the hiring was driven by government, by regulators stepping in after the financial crisis and saying to financial services firms, you need more oversight on your data. And suddenly, thanks to the government, it gave an uptick in the private sector as well. And so I bring that up because at this point, in 2016, chief data officers and chief digital officers, there were about the same amount. It was about 2,000 chief digital officers, and then chief data officers were starting to climb. And can you see the numbers here? 2013, 200 chief data officers. And then by 2016, 2,000. And then I was forecasting at that point there would be 3,000 the next year in 2017. So the growth continued. We then started really tracking chief data officers. We named DJ Patil who was at the US Office of Science and Technology Policy under the Obama administration. You may all remember he wrote, the chief data scientist is the sexiest job title in the 21st century for Harvard Business Review, led to a lot of people joining and becoming chief data scientists, including maybe my nephew, who's in the audience as well. So around that time, 2016, is when I first started hearing about chief AI officers. I don't know about you, but Andrew Ning wrote an article in the Harvard Business Review, November 2016. So I was at the first ever, we produced the world's first ever Chief AI Officer Summit in December at the Institute for Experiential AI at Northeastern, and one of the people in the audience was Sol Rashidi, who I've known. A very accomplished young woman who's been Chief Data Officer. You all probably know her. She was at Merck, she was at IBM, she was at Royal Caribbean, she was at Estee Lauder, and now she's at Amazon. And Sol raised her hand and said, I think I was the first one, literally, as I was giving my presentation. So I'll stand by that until somebody corrects me, but I believe Sol was the first ever Chief AI Officer. So if that answers the question, we are taking notes. This is going to be a test. By 2017, we appointed Inderpal Bhandari, the Chief Data Officer, a global Chief Data Officer for IBM, as a CDO of the Year in 2017. And the pandemic hits, right? 2019. What happens? IBM gives us this huge sponsorship deal where we're going to do these events all over the world for IBM. We were going to go to Europe. We were going to go to the Middle East and Asia. And the pandemic hits. So the live events were out. So I said to IBM, why don't we do some events? Why don't we do webinars? Every other month, we'll do a webinar for IBM. And I suggested, since I was working with IBM's client AI accelerator team and Inderpal, the Office of the Global CDO, I suggested to them, why don't we do an event on CAIOs? Nobody's done this before. What happened? In 2020, I did that exact same search on LinkedIn, and I got 250 results. Now we get 1,400, right? So I started tracking in 2020. By that, I mean in LinkedIn, put in Chief AI Officer, see how many results you get. We got 250. That was 4 years ago. Then in 2022, we did all these events for IBM. And here was sort of the pièce de résistance. I was able to bring in Chief AI Officers from Michelin in France. That's Ambika, top left, to her right, to David Barnes, Chief AI Ethics Officer at the US Army, Sean Wang, who is at Elevance, and Daniel Hume, Chief AI Officer at WPP, arguably the largest agency in the world. You notice how important this was to IBM. Not only was Inderpal on the call, but also Mark Foster, who's chairman of IBM Consulting. So this was a big webinar, and this is now 2022, just 2 years ago. So what happened? We started at 250. It took 2 years to double. So now we're at 500. Then in December of 2023, we did the world's first ever Chief AI Officer Summit. I suggested this to Northeastern. They were kind enough to have the DeMoore McKim School of Business host us on day one. And for the CAIO Summit, we were hosted by the Institute for Experiential AI. We did the second Chief AI Officer Summit in Tokyo in June of 2024, this year. So now we got 2 under our belt. This is our third. So what's happened now? 2023, now we got 600 results. And if you scroll down, you'll see we're not doubling every other year now. Now we've doubled in this year alone. So in January 2024, it's 250. Okay, it could be 1 or 2 more or 2 less. I'm giving rough numbers. But in the beginning of this year, it was 781, and now it's 1,400. So it doubled just this year alone. At this point, with Chief Digital and Chief Data, that's when things started to go exponential. Everybody started paying attention. This is the thing. It's not just a few hundred people. So why are we only tracking 700? It's clickbait. So if you go on LinkedIn, we pulled down all 1,400. The other 700 are mom and pop shops, small companies. People who no longer hold the title are sort of the biggest grouping there. And then also the largest group is people who are using the title as clickbait to attract headhunters, CHROs, hiring managers, analysts, and investors. They're not real Chief AI Officers. And you got to dig through all their profiles on LinkedIn to see who's real and who's not. So who are we tracking, those 700? Big companies. Chief AI Officers at Avanade, Florence here, he's going to give a keynote later. Accenture, BT, Capgemini, Cognizant, all these really big companies are hiring Chief AI Officers, and some of them, like Microsoft and Accenture and Booz, they're hiring multiple Chief AI Officers in different roles. So if you were to ask me in December, what were the top sectors? The top sector was tech, Avanade, Microsoft, IBM. These were the big sectors. The second was financial services. third was healthcare and medical. So we're going to get into that a little bit later, but here's another. Again, you can see some of the groupings, Telstra, some of these other big companies like WPP. We're going to talk about some of these people, some of these all-stars. Oh, and by the way, it's such a low number, right, 700, that when one sector starts hiring like crazy, it skews in favor of that sector. So we all know the Biden-Harris administration created an executive order on AI in 2023, which mandated that all federal agencies, armed services, and the government needed to hire chief AI officers. So now there's 60 in government alone. So now government is the top sector. They've far surpassed tech companies. So who are these people? Ambika is in France. She's at Michelin. These are the people who I believe are the real unicorns, the people who not only have the technical chops to get the job done, but can speak to boards, they can speak to the C-suite, they understand how to manage an organization, and they lead with ethics, responsibility, trust, transparency, and an understanding of the data provenance. These are the all-stars. There's 700 of them. Daniel Hume, WPP. Interestingly enough, when I started tracking chief digital officers, the largest sector was advertising. Why would advertising companies be the largest sector in digital transformation? It's because in the early days of the web, companies, if they wanted to get online, they went to an ad agency to build their websites, right? So it made sense, but that sector went down pretty quickly as you cycled through. Deepika over at BT, amazing woman. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Can someone help me? I always think it's Holy Moses, which reminds me of an Elton John song, but I think it's Wol. But amazing guy, just hired at Microsoft. Now, look at what's happening at the tech companies. Not only are they hiring one, they're hiring multiple. Why would they do that? Well, he's chief responsible AI officer, and that's probably because most of these companies that are trying to onboard and get their AI strategy right, they want to make sure they're doing it responsibly and with ethics and trust and transparency. So it makes sense that a tech company advising others would hire a chief responsible AI officer. He's not the only one there. Lan, you may all know Lan. She's the more famous one. She's been there for quite a while. And now they've even got one at AFS, right here in DC, right? So Accenture Federal Services knows that there is a huge opportunity to consult to the government and to the armed services. So they brought somebody in who's got contacts at federal. If you were to look at government CAIOs just 6 months ago, in December, this was my slide at the first Chief AI Officer Summit. There were only 9. Now look at it. The White House, again, they mandated that every agency hire one. So if you go to gov.ai, you're going to see them all. So a couple of them are here. One, Vinay, down the bottom, center. Vinay is a Chief AI Officer for Housing and Urban Development. Let's see, who's here? David Salvagnini from NASA. We have Krista, who's going to be here. Amazing background. Guy Cavallo, top center. He's Chief AI Officer at Office of Personnel Management. That's huge. They know the hiring is critical for AI talent. Here are the other 60 agencies. The U.S. is way ahead. Well, what happened next? Dubai announces that just like the U.S., we're going to hire chief AI officers in government service too. So we know the agencies. It's police, it's Homeland Security, but we don't know who these appointees are yet. And this is a huge opportunity for those of you who have these skills, who want to work in a role like this, because clearly Dubai doesn't have the talent. They're going to have to bring expats in order to deliver on this. So very exciting times. And again, I go back to the Middle East. There were hardly any CAIOs when we were doing this track. But now that there's 22 there and there's so few, all of a sudden the Middle East looks like they've got more chief AI officers than the UK or in Europe. We're moving on now to compensation. This guy, Ryan, he's at Heidrick & Struggles. Every year he produces an annual compensation report for chief data analytics and chief AI officers. In the financial services sector, if you're a chief AI officer and you've got seasoned experience and you're one of those unicorns that can both speak to the board and the C-suite, and you've got the technical chops to do the job, and you've done this job for 7 to 10 years, and you've had both successes and failures, those folks make between, according to Ryan and my research, between $600,000 and $1.3 million a year. That pretty much prices out of the market small, medium businesses, government agencies. I mean, they cannot afford $1 million a year plus salaries for these folks, and there's only 700 on the planet. So you see the problem we're facing here. Because there's a limited supply and there's tremendous demand, huge price pressure on salary and compensation. So with only 700 out there, where the heck do we get these people? So one is, you buy them. You buy a company, acqui-hire. Mark Reed, old friend, he was one of the first chief digital officers who became CEO. I remember meeting him. He was chief digital officer at Wunderman, and then he became chief executive of WPP, the world's largest agency. And Mark bought Citalia, and the guy who ran Citalia was Daniel Hume, and Mark made him the chief AI officer. So yes, you could buy your way into this. Next, academia. There's a lot of continuing education courses, certificate programs. We need more of that, but it's slow. So also internally, training, upskilling, and then of course these conferences, rooms like this. And then we're going to go into now the two most important, I think. How many chief data officers in the room? Okay, how many chief analytics officers? How many CDAOs? Great, you're in line for these roles. And how many of you have grabbed the AI responsibilities at your organization? Excellent, excellent. That's what I like to see. Beautiful. So that's the goal. How can we train you people up? If you want this role and these responsibilities, now is the time. And then, of course, talent as a service, fractional roles. We're going to dig a little bit deeper in there. So for those chief data officers in the room, why do you think chief data officers would make great chief AI officers? Data is critical for success, absolutely. Anybody? Yes, they have the right relationships. They can get things done. Understand governance. Absolutely, Rob. They understand governance. They're used to being disliked. Yeah, right. Change management, Dr. DeLester Brown, National Guard. Yep, training, enablement. Krista, culture engagement. You nailed it, Dimitri. Clean data. Who's better at doing this? Who's the best at doing this? Chief data officers. Yes, and data is where the innovation is now. And all the innovation's happening on the data side. Yes, ability to upwardly manage, down, up and out, not just down and in. Was that it? I like that. All right, let's see what happened. How do we do? How do you like these? I know it's hard to read. I should only have 5 bullets on a slide. Don't give me grief. Here's the deal. Like we said, innovation happening on the data side. Number 2, you've been battle tested through a global pandemic. Give yourself some credit. That was rough. You kept the train running through work from home, became more efficient. Remote learning, telemedicine, the last mile, under very stressful circumstances. Dealt with regulation. Who brought that up, Rob? GDPR, CCPA, PII, explainability, transparency, provenance, right? That's you. It's the foundation of LLMs, solid background in ML, DL, CS. Oh, by the way, you're the most collegial group on earth. Do you know that? Chief digital officers are very competitive. But because chief data officers all got PhDs, there's more PhDs per pound with the chief data officer title than any other title on earth. So you've had to go through dissertations. You've had to be TAs, mentors. Very collegial. You're unique. Voracious appetite for continual education. Is that right? Yeah, people shaking their heads. Insatiably curious with a love of numbers and analytics. You moved very successfully from defense to offense. You've already handled data literacy, so what's up next? AI literacy, right? And then you took on, about 5 years ago, we knew that the analytics title and responsibilities was going to become important, so you grabbed those responsibilities. The time is now to grab the chief AI officer responsibilities as well. So how do we get more folks into huge opportunities? We believe talent as a service is a huge opportunity right now. Here are the challenges to hiring chief AI officers. 1, compensation is through the roof. This is priced out small, medium businesses, nonprofits, government, federal agencies. They just can't afford these people. So number 2, traditional executive search is completely broken for this title. What do I mean by that? It usually takes 9 months to 12 months to bring somebody in, right? You got to do all these interviews. If you think that that person in month 1 is going to be waiting around for your offer in month 10, forget it. They're gone. Somebody's going to pick them up. Also, exponential technologies like Gen AI. It's changing so fast that these people are going to skill out. Even if you take a year because here's the person I want, here's the role that they're going to take. 12 months from now, when you bring them in, all your goalposts are going to be changed. And you're probably going to need somebody with a whole different set of skills by that time than you originally hired for. There's no guarantee of success in this. People are going to skill out, and candidates are going to jump around. So, again, if you bring in somebody, if you interview people in month 1 and you bring them out or give them an offer in month 9, by month 10 they start, I guarantee you 3 months later your competition's going to come in, offer them twice as much, and they're going to be poached. Then you're back to square one. You're going to do another year-long search. Now you're 2 years behind. Traditional executive search is broken. So, oh, by the way, who's going to interview the candidates? Right? Who's going to interview this chief AI officer? What are the questions you're going to ask them? And then when they respond, how do you know they're telling you, how do you know they're telling you the truth or that is real? You're going to need to hire a chief AI officer to interview the chief AI officer. So the beautiful thing about fractional, we'll talk about it a little bit more. Tanya Du, our editor for LinkedIn News, is going to interview us at the very end of the day. So please stick around more about the benefits of the fractional approach. It's much more flexible, enhance innovation, pull people in right away. It's reduced risk. You're not betting your whole company on one person. You can bring multiple people in. And you can do hot swaps. You can bring in one person to get you past the LLM stage and swap them out for another person 3 or 4 months later as your goals change and start to evolve. So it's very cost effective. You get an access to a global talent pool, much more strategic. You got immediate impact, accelerated implementation, diverse experience from people who've worked in multiple sectors. So you're not just getting one person who's worked in one sector. You can bring in people from multiple sectors. And of course, what I'd love to say here is this isn't about replacement. This is non-threatening, especially to our government agents, folks who've been deputy CIO for 10 years at a government agency. This is not replacing you. This is augmenting you. This is bringing you somebody like a mentor who can come in and get you up to speed or help you get your deliverables done, because it's critical right now to keep those CIOs in place because they have all the connections throughout the agencies. So great points about fractional. You can see it's actually, it's agile, it's flexible, it's nimble, it's now, it's on demand, and it's scalable. It's pay as you go. It's try before you buy, and you can upgrade talent with ease. And again, it's non-threatening. I don't like moderating. I don't like giving keynotes. My voice is starting to crack. I get all sweaty. I'm usually in the back of the room, making sure everybody, all our experts are up on stage. You're going to see a lot of me today because we've launched a new company which is delivering fractional services. It's called Innovation Exchange. My partner in this is Tuffer Wirtz. He's sitting right over there. Please meet with him outside if you're interested in this. If you think about what the CDO Club does and what our skills are, we've got 100,000 subscribers on one end of our network. And on the other end of our network, we've got dozens of people who are acting as fractional talent. Why is this important? One is 75,000 of our subscribers are chief data, analytics, privacy, governance, risk, and legal officers. The other 25% are chief digital, chief strategy, chief technology, and chief innovation officers. That's 100,000 people. And I get calls every day saying, think of me if you find that. How many, I don't want to show hands because confidentiality is the coin of the realm in search. But I get calls every day from y'all saying, we need help. And I know the holes in all these organizations. Our goal is to use our community and all of you to help those companies solve these problems. I believe that it's better to hire your colleagues and your peers, the people that you can trust and that you worked with through the pandemic, and that you've seen, they're battle tested. When you're in a foxhole and you got to solve serious problems really quickly, you want people you can trust. So I believe with this community, we actually have a golden opportunity to help companies get their jobs done without having to bring in, the big Bains, et cetera, where they bring somebody in and they wheel out the high-end guy and then you never see him again once the engagement starts, right? This isn't that. This is about peers helping peers and people you trust. So that's Innovation Exchange. Tuffer and I are doing a soft launch. We wanted to do it here, get your feedback. So would love to hear from you on both ends of that network, both the opportunity side, where we can get clients to find opportunities, and also on the talent side, where we can get you off the bench and onto the field so that you can get the job done for these organizations. We're going to do expert reviews, workshops, trainings, coaching, advisory, and of course, fractional executives. So we'll talk about this a little bit more at the end of the day, but I do believe that is it. I think I've won way over time, and I hope we can make it up during the break. We're not going to get into qualifications and responsibilities. So this was the test, right? So number one, what were the 5 questions? Number one, how many chief AI officers are there? 700. That's a subset of what? Correct. All right, what was the second question? Oh, the first CAIO. Who was the first? Sol Rashidi. And where was... Okay, thank you, Seth. Battle of the IBMers. Sol was at IBM just like you. That is the benchmark, sir. And you know what? Well, that came up at our summit last time. So here we are, correcting it in live. Thank you so much, Seth. And her company, yours was IBM, the inaugural CAIO there. And Sol's claim to fame was Royal Caribbean after her stint at IBM. Okay, so that was the third question. What was the fourth? What's their compensation? 600 to 1.3 million for seasoned executives who are in financial services or tech firms and have been through this 7 to 10 years. Other organizations and sectors are significantly lower. The last question, what are their qualifications and responsibilities? We didn't cover that. I think we got them all, right? Excellent. Give yourselves a round of applause. You did it. Great. I don't know. Do we have time? Sure.
Folks, we're going to carry on with our presentations. Can we thank David? What a great session. David, if you would come back for 1 second. We'd come back for 1 second.
Okay.
I mentioned earlier that I just come back from the Nobel Peace Conference, and we talked about the connection between the two conferences. It's about making humanity better. And so I brought for David a Nobel Peace Prize to prepare him. I know he'll get one day.
Oh
so
my
he's going
God.
to practice with a chocolate one. This is
Chocolate.
a Nobel Peace Prize for you.
Can we get in front of this beautiful
okay.
sign? I mean, we put all this
Here we go.
effort into
Here
this
we
beautiful
go.
sign.
Here we go.
Three.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm so sweaty, it's going to melt in my hands. I know. Thank you so much, Sri. I
Thank you.
appreciate you so much. Thanks,
you,
everybody.
David.
Have a great show.